I want to be honest with you. The reason I made this video is because I got angry. Angry at my own car. I was looking under the hood of a vehicle I actually own. A modern SUV bought because it looked efficient, modern, future-proof, and the more I learned about what was inside it, the more I realized something had been quietly taken away. Not a feature, not an option, something deeper, something the brochure never mentioned, something the salesman didn't bring up, something I only found out after I started digging. And once I saw it, I started seeing it in almost every new SUV on the road. You won't notice it on the test drive. You won't see it on the window sticker. Most drivers won't notice for 3 years. Some won't notice for 5, and by the time they do, the warranty is already gone. In this video, I'll tell you exactly what was quietly removed and which SUVs on American roads right now are affected. But first, you need to understand why it was removed, because the reason is more uncomfortable than the change itself. The shift nobody talks about. For decades, the formula was simple. Bigger vehicles got bigger engines. There was margin built in, room for stress, room for heat, room for long-term durability. Then Europe changed the rules. Strict emissions targets, fleet-wide CO2 penalties, taxes tied directly to engine size. So manufacturers did the only thing they could. They shrank the engines, fewer cylinders, higher turbo pressure, smaller displacement inside heavier vehicles. On paper, it works. Fuel economy improves, emissions drop, regulators are satisfied, but the laws of physics don't sign legislation, and when a small engine has to move a heavy SUV, it operates closer to its limit, more often, for longer, every single drive. That's where the long-term risk begins. So what was quietly removed? Mechanical margin. The buffer between how hard an engine can work and how hard it has to work. That's the invisible thing missing from modern SUVs. But here's where it gets strange, because in the United States, this trend looks different than in Europe. Some models that exist overseas were never even sold here. Others were, but with a completely different engine under the hood. And one specific SUV reveals exactly why American buyers have been protected until recently. I'll show you that vehicle in a minute, but to understand it, we need to start with the one that started the whole conversation. The Ford EcoSport. One of Ford's smallest SUVs. In global markets, it often used the 1.0-liter EcoBoost, a highly advanced 3-cylinder turbo. In a small hatchback, it works. In an SUV, the math changes, and one design element became famous for the wrong reasons. A timing belt running inside the engine oil. The goal was efficiency, lower friction, better fuel numbers. But over time, material wear became a concern. If particles entered the oil system, lubrication could be affected. And lubrication is everything. Now here's the part most people miss. US versions of the EcoSport mostly used a 2.0-liter engine, not the 1.0. That difference matters more than it sounds, because it points to something specific about the American market, a pattern that has quietly shielded US buyers from the worst of the downsizing trend, until very recently. And the moment that protection started cracking, has a name, has a model year, and has a specific vehicle sitting in driveways across the country right now. We'll get there, but first, Hyundai. The Hyundai Kona split. Globally, the Kona ships with a 1.0-liter turbo. In the US, you get a 2.0-liter or a 1.6-liter turbo. Why the split? Because American driving is different. Longer distances, sustained highway speeds, higher load conditions, hotter summers in half the country. Direct injection engines under high thermal stress can develop carbon buildup over time. That's not a Hyundai problem, it's an industry-wide characteristic. Almost every direct injection turbo deals with it, but when you combine small displacement, high boost pressure, and sustained high load, the margin for error shrinks. That's the pattern, that's the trade, and it's about to show up in places American buyers don't expect. The brand that said no. The Jeep Renegade. Globally, it has been offered with a 1.0-liter engine. In the US, that configuration doesn't exist. Buyers here get larger engines because the expectation is non-negotiable. A Jeep should feel durable, capable, not constantly screaming at its limit on a highway grade. Small turbo engines in heavy, less aerodynamic vehicles run hot. More heat, more stress on the turbocharger, more demand on the cooling system. Over time, that compounds. So Jeep made a market decision. Skip the tiniest engines in America, protect the brand identity. It worked for a while. I built something for this. A small tool, free, lives on a single web page. You pick your SUV from a list, and it shows you exactly what the same model looked like 10 or 15 years ago. Same brand, same nameplate, different engine, the displacement, the cylinder count, the horsepower per liter, which is the real number that tells you how hard the engine is working, side by side. No login, no sign up, nothing to install. The link is in the description. Check your car, see what changed, then come back, because what I'm about to show you next explains why it changed. So where were we? Ah, yes, the Renegade. Here's what changed. The downsizing trend that Europe accepted as law. The trend that Jeep refused to bring to America. The trend that gave Ford and Hyundai different engines on different continents. It's no longer being kept out. It's already here. It's in showrooms right now. And there are specific 2024 and 2025 models you can walk into a dealership and drive home today that carry exactly the kind of engineering Europeans have been quietly absorbing for 15 years. 3 of those vehicles in particular, one of them might already be sitting in your driveway. Volkswagen Taos. Downsizing crosses the Atlantic. The Volkswagen Taos, a 1.5 liter turbocharged 4-cylinder, not a 3-cylinder, but still the clear downsizing approach for an SUV of its size. It's efficient, responsive, well engineered, but it also operates at higher specific output than the engines it replaced. That means more heat per cylinder, more pressure, more reliance on precise calibration, more dependence on perfect maintenance. It doesn't mean failure, it means less margin, and less margin means the owner, not the manufacturer, and carries more of the long-term risk. Nissan Rogue, 3 cylinders in a family SUV. The Nissan Rogue, a 1.5 liter 3-cylinder turbo in a mid-size family SUV sold across the United States. Technically impressive. Variable compression, high efficiency, a genuine engineering achievement, but also complex, and complexity introduces new variables, higher boost pressure, more reliance on software, more sensitivity to oil quality and service intervals. For the buyer, the ownership equation has shifted. The vehicle is more sophisticated, but sophistication and durability aren't the same thing. So that's the answer. The Volkswagen Taos, the Nissan Rogue, and one more, the Chevrolet Trailblazer. These are the vehicles where the European downsizing trend finally landed on American soil. 3 cylinders, tiny displacement, high boost, heavy vehicle. But there's still a question I haven't answered. If these engines are running closer to their limit, and if the long-term risk shifts to the owner, then who exactly is paying for this efficiency? Because somebody is, and the number is bigger than people realize. I'll get to that. But first, look at what Chevrolet did. Chevrolet Trailblazer, the new normal. The Trailblazer, available with a 1.2 liter or a 1.3 liter turbo, 3 cylinders, in an SUV. A decade ago, this would have been unthinkable in the US market. Today, it's becoming the standard. The engines are designed for it. GM didn't make a mistake. They responded to fuel economy targets the same way Europe did, but response is not the same as solution. The engine still operates closer to its limits. The thermal load is still high. The wear pattern still accelerates under sustained demand. This isn't speculation. It's just physics applied to mass production. Tiguan and RAV4. Now look at the other side. The Volkswagen Tiguan still runs a 2.0 liter turbo in the US. Not large, not extreme, a middle ground, more margin under load, more predictable long-term behavior. And that's where many American buyers still feel comfortable. The Toyota RAV4, naturally aspirated 2.5 liter or a hybrid, lower stress, lower boost, fewer extreme operating conditions, simplicity. And simplicity is exactly why the RAV4 keeps its resale value better than almost anything in the segment. The final one. So who's actually paying for the downsizing trend? It's not the regulator. The regulator only writes the rules. It's not the manufacturer. The manufacturer is protected by the warranty window. There's only one party left, and it's the same party every single time. The owner, specifically the second owner, the one who buys the vehicle at 5 years old, or 7, or 10, the one who inherits the wear that accumulated when nobody was looking. That's the cost. Quiet, delayed, almost invisible at purchase, but absolutely real. So is this still progress, or is it just a clever way of pushing cost into the future onto people who weren't part of the original decision? In Europe, downsizing isn't optional. Regulation forces it. Manufacturers adapt, and they adapt well, but the solutions often run right at the edge of what's mechanically reasonable. In the United States, the situation is different. Regulation exists, but buyer expectations still create resistance. Resistance to reduced durability, resistance to long-term risk being transferred to the owner. That doesn't mean downsizing disappears. It's already here. The Taos, the Rogue, the Trailblazer. The first wave has landed, but the second wave, the truly tiny engines that dominate European driveways, those still face a wall in America because American buyers value something efficiency numbers can't show on a brochure: longevity. So would you trade long-term durability for fuel efficiency, or is that a deal you would never take? Let me know in the comments. I read them, and if you want to see what happens to the cars that nobody buys at all, the ones that sit unsold for years until something strange happens to them, there's a video about that linked right here. You won't believe where they end up. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next one.